now, I am playing The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the N64 in preparation for my very first episode in the N64 Chronicles, which is a series that I'm sure many of you have been looking forward to for a long time, but trust me, it's worth the wait. I'm sorry it's taken so long, but there's this other Zelda game that I've sort of got myself hooked onto recently. Unfortunately, my playthrough of Ocarina of Time will have to wait a little while because today I got a big package in the mail. And by big package, I mean big package. I mean just look at this thing. I hope I'm not showing off the label. I'm not. Good. So, let me go ahead and open this 100% legitimately for the very first time. As you can see, it was definitely the person who sent this who failed to tape it properly. Let's ignore all this bubble wrap that I've obviously already taken out. Let's pretend I didn't. Oh my, for the very first time, I am withholding my first look at my own Atari 2600. Oh my goodness, this is the first time I've ever held this. So this is nothing like any of my other game consoles. I have the Wii U, the Nintendo Switch, and the Xbox One for my current gen consoles, and I also have an N64, a GameCube, and a Sega Genesis for my older consoles. The Atari is nothing like those. I mean, just look at this. You see this? This is made out of wood. This thing came out 40 years ago. It was made out of wood, and would you believe that this is actually a more reliable game console than anything that they have made within the last 10 years? Makes me want to just plug it in right now and get started. Now that my Atari is all hooked up to my TV, let's go ahead and play an Atari game. This one looks like a good choice, Video Olympics on the Atari 2600. Prior to the Atari 2600's release, the only game that most people were able to play was Pong. But with Atari, you were able to open up the doors and play all sorts of games, such as this one. It's just Pong. It's just Pong. The funny thing about Atari games is you can actually switch them between black and white and color. Yeah. Remember, back in the 70s, not everyone had a color TV, so if you wanted to play it in black and white, the Atari was actually capable of producing better colors for your black and white TV than your black and white TV was by just converting the colors down. Or something like that. This game comes with several different modes, and one of them is this, a two-person, two-paddle-each sort of Pong. It's really fun, really addicting, and really fluent, especially with the paddle controllers. Another thing about the Atari, in the middle of the game, you can change the difficulty. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. There were two buttons on top of the console that, if you press them, would change the difficulty for either player. MLG Pro Strats, right there. Atari did it 40 years ago, before it was cool. Up next, Breakout. This is a pretty classic game, and I'm sure as soon as you see the video here, you'll recognize it pretty quickly. The fun thing is, you don't even need an Atari in order to play this game. If you want to have some fun, go to Google Images and type Atari Breakout. You're welcome in advance. To be honest, this is my favorite game that I own for the console so far. I spent a good 30 minutes playing this, in order to get footage for the video. I just couldn't put it down. This is real addicting, real fun. If you ever get the chance, I highly recommend it. Super Breakout. This is one of the very first sequels in video game history. It is Breakout, but super. Pretty much says it all. Still fun though. Next on the list is Combat, which was the very first Atari game ever made, and it was packaged with the Atari consoles back when it was first released. I just have one problem with this. It requires a joystick in order to play, and my Atari did not come with a joystick. However, did you know that you can plug in a Sega Genesis controller into an Atari console, and it'll work just fine? That's what I ended up doing. After all that was said, though, I had a very difficult time figuring out how to play this game. It could be because I'm using a Genesis controller instead of a joystick, but it was a pretty underwhelming experience for me. The very first Atari game ever, and I am playing it in 2017 using a Sega Genesis controller, which didn't even come out until 1991. Atari, you are full of surprises. In fact, the most fun I had was when I hooked up the paddles to the second controller and moved the second tank closer to the first tank and had some fun like that. Oh, are you gonna sneak up on me? Oh, wouldn't it be a shame if I turn around and killed you? Ha ha! I need to go to a peace rally before I go nuts. The final game is called Maze Craze. It's a simple maze game, but surprisingly, it's pretty tough. Have you ever been to an IHOP or a Denny's or something, and they give you a little placemat and crayons and say, have fun with this little maze? Well, that's basically what this is, except in video game form. You have all sorts of maps that you need to get through, and at first it's really easy, but after a while I found this setting which completely blocks the entire middle of the screen. It only flashes every few seconds for a split second each time, so if you're playing this with someone else, I'm sure it would be really difficult. As it is, just as a single player, I had a tough time getting through this part. There, you can see in that split second where you have to go, and it's either a memory game, or you just bump into walls all the time until you find out where you're going. I spent a few minutes on this particular map. If I were able to see where I was going, it would be fine, but I couldn't. And I think that's part of the fun of Maze Craze. It has a lot of settings in the game that makes it so that every time you play it, it's a completely different experience. And even if you replay some levels, that's perfectly fine. It's a whole lot of fun. All of these games are a whole lot of fun. When it comes down to it, these are the most primitive of games that you can imagine. I mean, what you see on the screen is just barely representative of what that is supposed to be. But these are some of the best games ever made. They're the games you can just pick up and play for a few minutes and have some fun. You can bring friends over and pass the controller around. You can try and set a personal high score, even though no one would know about it unless you recorded it. So, when it comes down to it, would I rather be playing this or The Legend of Zelda? Well, I do have an Ocarina of Time video that you guys have been waiting for a long time, so I think I'd better just put this down and... Hi everyone, this is Skul. If you liked the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. If you're already subscribed, hit that little bell so you get notifications whenever I upload a new video. That does it for now. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.